Quite a few people who are interested in preparedness are also interested in outdoor activities like camping, overlanding, and hiking. Today, I want to go over 15 plus camping items that are great to have in your preparedness supplies. And also at the end, I'm going to go over a couple that aren't necessarily must have, but go with me every time I head to the hills. My family has been avid campers long before I knew what preparedness was, probably before I could even walk. But they do go hand in hand because camping is about getting away from all of the modern conveniences and going back to basically what was considered everyday life 100, 150 years ago. It's all the things that we prepare for in case of an emergency or disaster, only right now we're doing it by choice. It gives us a chance to test out our gear, our supplies, our skills. It helps prepare us mentally for what things might be like in a situation like that. And it also helps us prepare physically using our bug out bags and seeing how that's going to work. The great new hiking boots that we got, are they actually going to work or are they actually going to be painful? All of those things are things we can test out in a real world situation while everything is fine and normal and have a better idea about how to react in a disaster. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into some of these supplies that I have. And the first one is camping stoves. And there are a few different kinds of these. You've got the propane stoves or the alcohol stoves. Propane, there are quite a few different kinds. You've got the Coleman stoves that have the burners on them, or you have the little hiking stoves that can attach to the top of one of these propane canisters. As far as alcohol stoves go, these are popular with hikers because they're really lightweight. You've got the alcohol canister that you pour a little bit of alcohol in, and it will stay lit for 10, 15 minutes to boil some water, make some coffee, or do whatever you need to do. So these types of stoves are great for emergency preparedness because it gives you options of cooking and using very little fuel or putting off a very little smell in disaster or emergency situations. And they're also very useful in camping situations. The alcohol stoves can actually be used indoors. So if it's really cold outside, you can actually boil some water indoors. You don't have to worry about going outside and starting a fire or something like that. And speaking of fire, you've also got fire starters. And I know you can get a fire started without these fire starters as long as you know what you're doing with these small materials and work your way up to the big materials. But these fire starters make it really easy. My favorite these days is called Firelight, and these come in hockey-sized little tins. It's basically wood shavings, wax-infused wood shavings. They are water resistant. You can light them when it's wet. It takes a spark really easily, and just a little bit of this will help you get that fire started. So fire starting supplies may not be that must-have type thing, but they're going to make the job a whole lot easier. There are also DIY methods and things that you can make as far as fire starters go as well. Next, I've got water purification, and this is the tablets and the filters. A couple of go-to water filters when you're talking about camping are the Sawyer Minis or even the Cordage filters and the Life Straws. All of these will filter out the microorganisms, the Giardia and the Cryptosporidium. But if you are looking for something that's going to get chemicals and things like that, you might need something a little bit bigger. The great thing about these, especially the Sawyer filters, are they're about $20 and are going to get the job done in a lot of situations. So these are not only great for camping, they're also great for emergency preparedness. You've also got the water purification tablets. The MicroPures are my go-to in any sort of, whether I'm camping or whether it's water purification at home. The MicroPures take a little bit longer than some of the other tablets, but they are going to get the job done. And while you're at it with this water purification stuff, also think about a platypus bag, because this makes it easy for you to be able to collect dirty water, run it through that filter, and you have clean water after it goes through that filter. So the water purification tablets, the water filters, and even a platypus bag to collect drinking water are all camping supplies that really would be beneficial in a preparedness situation. Next, I've got light sources, and there really is no end to different types of flashlights and things like that. But a few that I like are the Lucy lanterns. These are nice and convenient. They recharge via solar or USB, and they put off quite a bit of light. You've also got items like the Bogue RV camping lantern that I just did a review on. I haven't had a chance to take this out with me camping yet, but this is a very cool light because it goes in all different directions. It's got 3 different light modes, and it's basically a lamp you can put on the picnic table. And as far as preparedness is concerned, you can light up a whole room and direct that light towards you rather than having it go out the windows or alerting the neighbors and things like that. You've also got headlamps and flashlights. Headlamps are really convenient in a camping situation and in an emergency situation because it allows you to be hands-free with everything you're doing. So these light sources that are great for camping are also good for emergency preparedness uses, and you just never know when you're going to need one of these, whether you're talking about a lantern or a headlamp or a flashlight. Next, I have food, and not necessarily like the canned food or anything like that, but the freeze-dried foods, the hiking meals, the things that you can just basically open up and they don't require any cooking. You open them up and you are good to go. You've got some of the freeze-dried meals, the Mountain House meals, you'd have to boil a little bit of water, but that's basically it. You've got MREs, which are really nice for camping. They are a little bit less expensive than the Mountain House food, and they include the heaters with them. So it's basically a meal in a bag, and it's a hot meal in a bag, and it's got all the different things you would need in that, and they're usually around 2,000 calories. Another thing would be the ration bars, which are great to leave in your automobile because they're temperature resistant. They're great for hiking, and in emergency preparedness, they last for a really long time as well. So you can get some of these and you can have them stored away and you don't have to worry about them too much. These ration bars are a little bit dry. They sort of taste like cookies, but if you need those calories, these ration bars are going to get the job done. And like I said, they are temperature resistant. With the MREs, the temperature needs to be maintained around 70 degrees, but unless you're going camping, and it's not like if they get to 100 degrees for 30 minutes, it's going to ruin them. But these ration bars are a little bit more temperature tolerant. So the freeze-dried meals, the MREs, the ration bars, and things like that are all great camping foods, as well as foods to put in your preparedness stockpile. Another category of camping supplies that is also good in emergency preparedness is the shelter items, the tents, the tarps, the sleeping bags, even the clothing and the shoes and things like that. Now, tents, you're probably not going to want to be sleeping outside, but you can figure out ways to get a tent up inside a room. So if you are trying to heat or cool a small area, a tent would make it even a smaller area. So you've got, a 2-person tent that you could figure out how to get up in a house. You don't want to put stakes through the ground, but you could figure out how to get that up in a small room and heat that instead of a large room. You've got tarps, which are good for a number of different reasons, covering things and making shelter. A lot of different things tarps are good for. And then sleeping bags. If you are trying to heat up a small room, you can make that even smaller than a tent and use a sleeping bag, a below zero sleeping bag that just covers you or somebody you are with. So the shelter ideas in camping are, whether you camp or not, are great to learn from and, get some of those. Go to that camping section at Walmart and grab a few things for your emergency preparedness supplies. Another category is the tools. You've got the fixed blade knives, you've got multi-tools, you've got shovels and pickaxes and hatchets and things like that. All of these camping tools could be really beneficial in a number of different emergency situations. Fixed blade knives, or survival knives that I call them, are fantastic as long as it's a full tang knife. The less moving parts, the less likely it is to break. A full tang just means it goes from end to end is one solid piece of metal. Multi-tools are great for, you just never know when you're going to need some of the things on that multi-tool. I carry a multi-tool all the time. There are still some little things on the multi-tool that I've never used and some that I use all the time. You never know when a screwdriver is going to be important. The pliers are going to be important, or the knife is going to be important. So all of these tools that you use while you're camping can also be used in emergency preparedness and are great to have. Another one I have is fishing tackle, and this really doesn't matter whether you fish now or not. In an emergency or disaster situation, fishing, trying to catch a fish is going to be a whole lot easier than putting up snare traps and trying to catch small game, or even hunting, trying to catch large game. Fishing is probably the easiest way to get food other than foraging and things like that. So I think it's important to have a little bit of fishing tackle. It doesn't take, you don't have to take classes to learn how to fish. It's really easy to do. To get really good at it, you need to do it a little bit more often. But to fish, it's basically putting a piece of food on the end of a line and throwing it in the water and hoping that a fish comes to get it. But fishing tackle is, I think, one of those things that everyone should have, regardless whether you fish or not. Because in a situation like that, you just never know when you're going to need to get some food. And this is, I think, the easiest way to go about that. You'll have the most luck if you are fishing for food. Something else that is an absolute must in your camping supplies and your preparedness supplies are first aid kits. And this can be a number of different things. The Surviveware first aid kit, I have this that I keep in my vehicle when we go camping. I love this kit because it's got everything included in it. Now, this, I don't recommend too many pre-made first aid kits, but in a situation like this, I think they're okay. And this Surviveware kit was about $80, and it's a really nice kit. We've done a video on this. My wife Lisa and I, she's an RN. We've done a video on this kit in the past, and it's a really well-made kit. Along with these basic first aid supplies, you also want to think about items like cat tourniquets and even SAM splints. If you're going to be out in the wilderness or camping, these things could be very important, especially the SAM splint for breaks and sprains and things like that. And along with a camping situation, they're also important in preparedness because you just never know when something like this might happen, and you don't have the availability at hospitals or doctors may mean you need to wait a little while and you might need to do things on your own. So having all of these first aid supplies are really important in preparedness and something that you should always take with you, whether you're camping, hiking, or even just going to the range. I think having first aid supplies in your vehicle or with you is very important. And before I get into these other supplies that are not necessarily the must-have supplies, but are really cool, I got to talk about paracord, cordage tapes, and things like that. Paracord is a must-have if you are camping because you just never know when you're going to need it. If you need to hang something from a tree, if you need to put up a hammock, you need to repair parts of a tent or something like that. Paracord, jute twine, tapes, duct tape, and things like that are all really important to have. And you could probably go camping 9 times out of 10 and never need them, but that one time you need it, you're going to be really happy you have it. The same thing goes for preparedness. Having this paracord, having this jute twine may not be one of those quote unquote life-saving prepping supplies, but you're going to be really glad you have it if the time comes that you do need it. All right, so I talked about earlier about 3 different items that are just really cool that I didn't used to take with me camping, but they go with me all the time. Mainly because I don't think they existed when I was younger going camping, but they do now. And as I get older, I'm all about the supplies that make life a little bit easier. And the first one I want to mention here is the Iwatani butane stove. These little stoves are absolutely fantastic because they're just so convenient and so useful. The butane doesn't play well in really cold weather, but you're probably not going to be camping in really cold weather, so that's not usually an issue. But this Iwatani butane stove is great because it's really quick and convenient. You wake up in the morning, you want to boil some water for some coffee. You don't have to fumble with getting a whole fire started or anything like that. You just plug this in, turn this on, and you are good to go. It's just a really convenient piece of equipment. The next one I have is a buddy heater, and these are really convenient in our pop-up camper, not necessarily the tent or outside, but if you have a pop-up camper, an RV, something like that, these will really do a good job of heating up inside that camper. A lot of hunters use these when they go out, even just for the enclosed beds of their trucks. They will use these because they are the ones out there in the cold weather. not necessarily, fishermen and campers. But these buddy heaters are great, and not just for camping, but emergency preparedness as well. If you're trying to heat up a small room or a small portion of your house, these are going to get the job done. They work with these small canisters of propane, and you can even get the fuel keg, which is a refillable bottle of propane. You need to get the fuel keg and the refill kit, but these are fantastic as well. The buddy heater is one of those preparedness supplies that I think is a must-have, and they aren't super expensive. You can get the small one for around $100, a medium one. But they are really beneficial in a number of situations, and in an emergency could be a lifesaver, literally. The next one I have is more of a convenience, but they are fantastic, and that is a DC refrigerator. Now, what a DC refrigerator is basically a glorified cooler. Back when I was younger, it was and we still do it too. You put the ice in the cooler and it lasts for a few days. You've got to go to one of the bait stores or something, get another bag of ice after a day or two and refill that. These DC refrigerators make all of that completely unnecessary. These run on really low wattage. So a 500 watt hour little power station, or even smaller 250 watt hour power station, will run this for days on end. If you've got a 100-watt solar panel, you can recharge the energy that this DC refrigerator uses in one day super easy. So this DC refrigerator goes with us all the time. And these are super beneficial for an emergency preparedness situation because they do use very little energy, and it allows you a little bit of refrigeration if the grid is down, and you don't have to worry about throwing all that food away. You can keep some of that food fresh. There's a bunch of different sizes. I've got a couple. I've got one that's medium size. It's 45 liters, 35 liters. And then I've got a huge beast, the IceCo, that is 58 liters. It's the IceCo 55, and it is an absolute beast. The smaller one usually goes with us camping, and this larger one stays here at the house, and this is where we put our overflow. If we've got a lot of meat that we just purchased, this is where we put that overflow meat. And in a disaster or an emergency, it's already running, it's already cool, so we don't have to worry about using energy to bring it to temperature. It's already running, and it's already good to go. But these three items that I just went over, the Iwatani butane stove, the buddy heater, and a DC refrigerator, are my favorite camping supplies that are also very useful in an emergency or a disaster situation. At any rate, that's it for this list. And I know there's a whole lot more camping supplies that would be useful in emergency preparedness or an emergency or disaster situation. And if you have any, make sure and leave them in the comments below. But with that, I am done here today. Take care and prepare, everyone. We will talk to you all later.